This might be one of the craziest developments in the Mediterranean migrant crisis that I have ever seen. The Libyan Coast Guard are being accused of actually sinking a ship with 158 people on it, killing some of them. This is insane, right? So we've heard that the Libyan Coast Guard will sometimes turn the boats back and kind of not really do a whole lot. There have been some issues with Libya because it's kind of a failed state at this point. But then we've heard that these NGO ships are essentially ferrying these people from just outside of Libyan territorial waters and bringing them straight into Europe. There's accusations that these people are aiding human traffickers by doing so. And look, that was an opinion of what was associated with like far-right ideology, but Emmanuel Macron, he came out and said that these NGOs are not playing by the rules and they're playing into the hands of human traffickers, because these traffickers take money from individuals in Africa and then say, you pay us, we'll get you on a boat, the NGOs will bring you to Europe, and that's what's been happening. The NGOs are not doing search and rescue. You can actually track their GPS and see they're just all going to the same place around Libya, and it looks like they're just going there, picking people up and going back. One of the arguments is that, well, the boats are rickety and will probably sink. It's better just get them off these terrible boats and then bring them to shore. But typically, when you're doing search and rescue, you pick people up and bring them to the nearest port, which would be Libya, so it's really strange. But again, Italy is closing its port, Spain's pissed, France is pissed, and the conversation around the migrant crisis has been escalating. And yes, not refugee crisis, migrants, because even the UNHCR has said most of these people are not refugees. I am not talking about the Eastern Mediterranean route, which is people coming from the Middle East. I'm talking about the Central Mediterranean route, where they come up from Africa through Libya. Human traffickers take money from them. Some of them get sold into slavery once they get there. It's really terrifying. But now we have this update that they're claiming Libyan Coast Guard sank a boat and abandoned these people. This is nuts. The story from the Daily Mail, left to die. Drowned woman and child are found along with survivor still clinging to wrecked migrant ship after Libyan Coast Guards sank the boat and abandoned them. Warning. Distressing content. And yes, I'm going to warn you right now, there are graphic photos, so if you don't want to see them, turn back now. In the story, they say the bodies of a drowned woman and toddler have been found, along with a sole survivor, still clinging to a wrecked migrant ship today after Libyan Coast Guards left them to die in the Mediterranean on Monday. Distressing photos of the two corpses slumped on the remains of a table from the boat have been published on Twitter by Proactiva Open Arms, a non-governmental organization based in Barcelona. Libyan Coast Guards had sent out a message to the Maritime Rescue Coordination saying they had rescued 158 Europe-bound migrants on Monday. However, they did not say that 2 women and a child had been left behind on board. Proactiva Open Arms claims the migrant ship was deliberately sunk after the trio refused to board the patrol boats and be returned to the North African nation. And here are the photos. I'm not going to linger on them, but these are graphic photos of a rescue from these European NGO ships. You can see Open Arms here in the back, and these divers are coming in, and yes, that is a dead body in this news article. Oscar Camps, founder of Proactiva, said, "When we arrived, we found one of the women still alive. We could not do anything to save the other woman and the child, who apparently died a few hours before we found them. The migrant aid group has accused Libya's Coast Guard of abandoning the 3 people in the Mediterranean Sea." So apparently, the Libyan Coast Guard came to the ship, took these people off the boat, according to this NGO, and then when 3 people refused, they sank the ship, killing 2 of them. At least, that's what it sounds like is what's going on. In a blog, journalist Annalisa Camilli, writing at sea about the rescue, said the surviving woman's name is Josephine, and she is originally from Cameroon. She was found on her stomach attached to a table, Camilli added. Her Spanish rescuer, Javiera Filguera, 25, said that as he swam towards her, he was hoping with all his heart that she was still alive. And you can see there's a photo of the rescue taking place. Here we can see the woman, I don't know if that's the woman, but yes, this is the woman who died. They say the emotional toll of the mission is etched on the workers' faces as they retrieve the body of the dead woman and take her corpse back to the boat. These guys, it looks like they're crying as they're in the water trying to bring this woman back to the ship. And you know, there's a lot of talk about what's going on in the Mediterranean, and there's a lot of accusations of the NGO essentially ferrying these people for human traffickers. But look, I mean, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people who are going to say this is a PR stunt, this is some kind of propaganda, but I think that's a bit too conspiratorial in my eyes. From these people's from the story by Proactiva, Libya, the Coast Guard sank the ship. So I mean, you have an extreme story regardless. Is Libya actually, sinking these ships now to return people back to the shores? I don't know, that's what they're claiming. The dead toddler is believed to have died from hypothermia and was found alongside a woman, presumably her mother. She was also found curled dead on a table, the skin of her arms burned by diesel fuel leaked from the canisters, the journalist explained. Giovanna Scaccabarozzi, apologies on my name pronunciation, the doctor on board Proactiva said the woman had probably been dead for several hours prior to being discovered in the sea, while the toddler had died recently. Libyan Coast Guard spokesman Ayub Gassim had earlier said that a boat carrying 158 passengers, including 34 women and 9 children, had been stopped Monday off the coast of the western town of Combs. He said the migrants were given humanitarian and medical aid and were taken to a refugee camp. Libya has emerged as a major transit point to Europe for those fleeing poverty and civil war in Africa and the Middle East. Let's look at this. Out of 158 passengers, 34 were women and 9 were children. So that gives us about 43 of these people. So was that 115 passengers were men? And, I guess this is interesting because a lot of people are curious as to why it's always men fleeing these countries, but here we can see that it is predominantly men who are on this one particular ship. Traffickers have exploited Libya's chaos following the 2011 uprising that toppled and killed longtime ruler Muammar Gaddafi. Here we can see some more photos of the rescue and this woman. Italy's new populist government has vowed to halt the influx of migrants across the Mediterranean and has given aid to Libyan authorities to step up efforts to stem the flow. Human rights activists have sharply criticized that assistance, saying migrants being returned to Libya are at risk of facing beatings, abuse, rape, and slavery. The founder of Proactiva Open Arms, Oscar Campstay, blamed the Italian government's cooperation with Libyan authorities for the death of the woman and the toddler that his group had found. This is a direct consequence of contracting armed militias to make the rest of Europe believe that Libya is a state, a government, and a safe country, Camp said in a video posted on Twitter. He said the 2 women and the toddler had refused to board the Libyan vessel with the rest of the intercepted migrants, and the 3 were abandoned in the sea after the Libyan Coast Guard destroyed the migrants' boat. Camps also said their deaths were the result of not allowing aid groups like Proactiva to work in the Mediterranean. Both Italy and Malta have blocked aid groups from operating rescue boats, either by refusing them entry to their ports or by impounding their vessels and putting their crews under investigation. This has added fuel to an ongoing war of words between Proactiva and Italy's Prime Minister of the Interior, Matteo Salvini. So here we have an NGO Proactiva Open Arms rescue boat member, Esther Camps, looks through binoculars during a rescue operation in the Mediterranean. There's a big challenge in everything that's going on in the Mediterranean. Do we want to save lives? Of course we do. Do we want people to die? Of course we don't. But we also want to make sure that people aren't being encouraged to take these dangerous journeys where they are dying, or to engage in business with human traffickers who might turn around and sell them into slavery. A lot of these people, according to the UNHCR, are fleeing poverty. But poverty is technically relative. In some of these countries, they're capable of living, but choose to go to Europe because Europe is wealthier. They're economic migrants. They're in search of work. Some of these people are fleeing civil war and very dangerous conditions. But what these NGO ships do does provide some solace, does provide these people with confidence that they can make it to Europe. And it's a big challenge. Ultimately, I don't know what the answer is, but I certainly don't think the answer is just letting people go to Libya, pick people up, and keep bringing them into Europe, simply because it's not a long-term solution to what's happening in these countries. I don't know what the solution is, but now look what we're seeing. Libya is apparently sinking ships, killing people, a few people who refuse to leave. And this is very dangerous. Keep in mind, we're not talking about refugees of war from the Middle East. We're talking about primarily economic migrant men who are just trying to come to Europe to find work. What concerns me as well is that many of these people working for these NGO groups very well may be just open borders activists who think they have a right to ship people in against the wishes of, or against the laws of these other countries. So it seems to be, here's what I'll say. For a while, everyone said these were refugees. They're refugees fleeing war. And these European ports were allowing them to come in. And then something changed. And now Italy, elected a populist leader. He's saying no more. Spain is saying, hey, we're not going to take them. And even France is saying the NGOs are playing into the hands of human traffickers. Something changed. And as the narrative is shifting more towards this is becoming a big problem and they're economic migrants, not refugees, it's safe to say that narrative is going to persist. And we're going to end up at a point where Libya must stop allowing these migrants to take these dangerous journeys in search of economic opportunity, and Europe isn't going to allow them to dock, and it's already been happening. So I guess, I'm just going to end with this, probably the most shocking story I have seen in the whole humanitarian crisis, that the Libyan Coast Guard sank a boat killing people. I fear that it's only going to get worse, and this is just the start. So anyway, that's about it for today. I'll have a new video up on my main channel tomorrow at 4 p.m. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you tomorrow.